Territory mapping is generally one of the most important things you'll do as a franchisor. It shows your market potential, it helps recruit franchisees, maximises revenue, and reduces conflict. More than that, it demonstrates you're serious, that you've actually taken the time to ensure your franchisees have the same opportunity you had with your own operation. And that's the whole point of franchising, replicating success fairly. Hi, I'm Martin from Familia. I built my own franchise network from a single site up to over 50 franchise locations across the UK. These days I help other franchisors scale their businesses and improve profitability throughout their networks. I've seen what happens when territory mapping goes right and when it goes wrong. And today I'm going to look at Smappen, which is a territory mapping software designed for franchisors. Okay, so this is Smappen and it's a cloud-based solution. I'm actually on their website now, which is smappen.com. To log in, just go up to the top right here and it takes you to the dashboard. So let me explain what you're looking at here. Well, I've already set up a demo territory. I brought that in earlier. It's very simple to do. And it's a location just south of London. It's a place called Reigate. Let me explain what you can do with this bit of software. So I'm going to start by looking at the menu. So the first thing is demographics. Now, these are amazingly detailed and so useful. So when I show this to new franchisors that have never used professional mapping before, it absolutely blows their mind. So I can, for example, tell you that within this territory boundary, there are 114,000 inhabitants. I can tell you the average median income, the breakdown of the population, gender distributions, the ethnicity, employment, whether you've got students, self-employed, high managerial inhabitants, or anything in between. I can also identify type of housing, so you've got flats or homeowners. I can see if they've got cars or van ownership by household, or how many people live in each household, whether they're families, and the breakdown of household sizes. So you've got all this amazing demographic information, which is so useful. So when you've got your pilot site, you can actually look at your actual data and replicate that across the UK. So you obviously need to factor in where your customers are based. So if you're a man and van franchise, you'll want to know how long it takes to travel to your customers, or if you've got a fixed facility, how far your customers travel to you. And Smappen makes this really easy to analyze. So I've just brought in some imported customer data, and you can see in this particular example, the customers come from far and wide. You see some are within the territory, some are outside. So obviously when it comes to territory mapping, you need to decide how big your territories are going to be, how you're going to define your model. And there's obviously a big difference depending on what you decide. And that's something that we'll go through in more detail in a different video, because it's important to note that Smappen doesn't handle this. It's very much you're in control of your mapping, okay? If you run say a B2B business, there's a brilliant option here. So in the menu, there's something called points of interest. So for example, if you relied on targeting restaurants, for example, you can run a search. So let me just run a search here for restaurants. And it shows you all the different restaurants that are within your territory. So this is really, really useful to analyze. You can actually see market potential. You can base your level of numbers of how many restaurants each territory is going to need. But obviously, if you need to go more granular, you can do that too. So for example, if you just wanted to target sushi restaurants, for example, you can just focus on those particular points of interest. So and you can see here, it's just located the individual sushi restaurants. So this is great from an operational and marketing point of view. To be able to give your franchisees access to this kind of data is extremely powerful. So what else do you have access to? Well, you can create fantastic detailed reports with a click of a button. So you can run reports with all this information. So that's great from franchisee recruitment point of view. You can also import your own metrics. So if you've got specific data demands, it's really quite detailed. And this is really useful to analyze your network in far more detail. And one other thing that I think is really interesting is the heat map. Let's have a look. For example, if you've got a franchise targeting the under fives, you can look at the heat map and see where the young parents or young families with children under five live. So from a marketing point of view and a franchisee point of view, to prove that you understand the market, where the opportunity lies within each franchise territory, to prove that it's viable and you've got the information at your fingertips, is really, really useful. Okay, so my honest take, if you're actively franchising and if your territory planning is currently ad hoc or manual, so for example, if you're using things like Google Maps and drawing circles all over the UK, then absolutely, you really need to consider Smappen. I think you should look at some software like this. It's important, though, you note that it doesn't do your strategic thinking for you. So you need to do the work behind the scenes. You're going to have to look at the demographic detail. You're going to have to apply that when you create your territory. So it's not magical, as it does involve you doing a lot of the work, but it's absolutely better than guessing territory sizes. I should point out that it's not the only option. There are other tools as well, so it really does depend on your situation. So obviously you can utilize consultants like us to do the heavy lifting for you, and actually we might use software like Smappen, or there's enterprise-based systems that might make a lot more sense. It really does depend on how complex your data demands are. But I would say for small to mid-sized franchise networks that want proper territory planning without the complexity or cost, I think Smappen does do what it says on the tin. So my advice is to head to smappen.com, try the trial, use your own data, as I think that's the only way you'll know whether it will work for you. Thanks for watching.